Hey, AJ. Hey, we got your name right. Where's Volmic?
I'm Brian.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Work here at Github.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I have
You're the one who's going to come up and give a pitch.
like a little slightly
Okay.
short pitch.
Great. So I'll go through. There's a slide that I'll land on that will be like, thank you to our sponsor. And I'll invite you up at that point.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Hey, Volmic. Volmic to the stage, please. Volmic to the stage.
There he is. Hey, Volmic.
Volmic. He's playing with his phone. He's not paying attention to me. I tried I Love SFNode again and it didn't work. Oh man, Bruce. That's cold-hearted. That is cold-hearted. It is time, folks!
You got a joke?
Of course I do. What, are you kidding me?
I'll make sure. I got a joke. We're gonna do this.
Joe's got jokes? I know. That's scary, right? Ooh.
Whoa.
I never claimed to be a dad. I always preface it with, hey, I'm not a dad, or frequently anyway. Anyway, enough of this chit-chat. Hello. Welcome to the August edition of SFNode. Thank you very much for showing up. Now, those of you that have been here before know that I usually don't use a microphone, so this is still slightly odd for me, but I've been told that we're live streaming again tonight because it's GitHub. Thank you, GitHub, for the live stream. And because I feel the need to torture you that have been here before, I have a little tradition. But first I want to know, how many people in this audience have never been to an SFNode before and don't know what's coming? Oh, that's so delicious. Oh, that's so yummy. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you very much for showing up. We really appreciate it when the newcomers show up. It helps bolster our numbers. And also, hey, you get to meet cool people, and that's awesome. But I'm so very sorry for what's about to happen. My name is Chris. I've been an organizer with SFNode for 4 years, and I like to kick off every event that I MC with a little story. And today's story has to do with burnout. I don't know if any of you have ever suffered from burnout before, but I am experiencing it right now. I am dying. Oh my God, I need a vacation. And I've been considering other careers. I've been considering a career transition. And I got to tell you, there's one that I've been looking into that sounds pretty promising. It's washing mirrors. And that's just a career I can see myself in, is all that is. Oh, groans. One sad golf clap from Joe. Thank you very much. As long as it's not silence, that's all I care about. You can groan or you can laugh. As long as it's not crickets, I don't care. But if you're new to the Bay Area, if you've never been here before, if you don't know what the meetup scene is like in San Francisco, Oakland, and all the others, then I'm here to tell you that we are not the only show in town. There are plenty of other places that you can go, and if you look up behind me, you can see a few of them. First and foremost is Node School. We all love Node School if you've ever been to one, and if you haven't, you totally should. They're a hell of a lot of fun. The next Why do we not know the date? Come on, Node School Oakland. Saturday, August something. Saturday, August something. It's usually the third Saturday of the month, if I remember correctly, so pull out your calendar and figure that one out. Node School San Francisco is going to be at Mixmax this month. That's going to be on August 17th. Mixmax is awesome. Node School is awesome. Sounds like a pretty great combo to me. Node School Oakland is on a break this month. Oh, well, scratch that one off the list, guys. I'm super sorry. They will be back. Of course they will be. Next month, SFNode, we will be on Thursday, September 5th. We don't know where yet. So if your company has an event space that can hold this many people, please reach out to one of us. Find us. We will talk to you. That guy right there, Trey, he will be happy to talk to you. And also, Waffle.js. If you've never been to a Waffle.js, it's sort of like a comedy show and musical theater and technology had this weird baby and combined it with food and gave you a donut. It's great. It's highly entertaining. No two events are ever the same. It's crazy. I highly recommend going. And it's their 4th anniversary at this next one, which means that it's probably going to be hopping. Speaking of fourth anniversaries, this day marks my 4th anniversary as an organizer of SFNode. So, you and Winston as well? Awesome. So, hey, also Joe and also Winston. Is Winston here? Oh, yeah, he's on vacation. See, he's dealing with that burnout in much healthier ways than I am. One thing that we like to do every time somebody is gracious enough to host us is to thank them for their service. So I would like to give a very heartfelt thank you to Github. Thank you so very much for the food, for the booze, for the space, for the speakers.
Got a full stack laptop going on right here. There's 2 of them. All right, so who's heard of GitHub? If you got all the way here, never heard of this place. Actually, reverse. Who's never heard of GitHub? No? Worse. You stole my thunder. Yes, wah, good one. Haha. Yeah, so we're a small incubator inside of Microsoft. And so we're just getting started. Like, we have some really cool features and stuff with collaboration. But a lot of people always ask me, like, how GitHub makes money. And the answer is blockchain. Just kidding. It's not. So I'm a Beyonce advocate here. And what I do is I go to bat for the Hive. Literally, I'm a developer advocate. So I tend to talk to people like yourselves. And you ask me questions. And I tell you how to fix them. And then I tell you how to Google on Stack Overflow. But I'm here to talk about this new thing that we launched back in May. It's called the GitHub Package Registry. Who saw this? Who's heard of it? Okay, raise your hand if you're open source maintainer and you have code on GitHub. Okay, cool. So you're the target market. So we're doing this thing where we can actually help you package your code directly on GitHub. The cool thing about that is, well, I had this question, like, what is GitHub even more like anymore? We're shipping a lot of stuff. If you've noticed, we're doing a lot of cool things, and we're trying really cool things that we've wanted to try for a while. GitHub itself is a sticker company. We give out swag. We don't have stickers here. I'm not sure why. I'm doing better than that mirror joke. I'm not sure why. All right. But yeah, so...
Show off.
But package managers like NPM, are there any other ones besides that one? I'm just kidding. But yeah, a lot of them, they're really focused on the client side. Like, they're really good at the whole CDN stuff. But I think what we've had is not a lot of work on the server side. So what GitHub is actually doing is preventing all this like abstraction away from the server side for package management, and which is why we're approaching this idea. Since your code's already there, we can package your code and then have that shipped to NPM for you, since NPM's doing the CDN stuff really well. We're also enhancing security with SHA-512. NPM's doing this today, but this is something that we came out the gate with as well to think about. Anybody know what SHA-512 is? Okay, well, yeah, well, this is what it is, and if you see, it's basically just crypto, which is blockchain, so if you're following along. And SHA-512 is actually what Beyonce's... her original group was called Shopify 12. It was really good. But this is all like cool to feature points. You can go to github.com/features. Is anybody going to github.com? No. All right, cool. Well, that's my job. So if you want to learn how to use github.com, I can show you how to type it in the URL. But essentially, we're centralizing like where code is found. Centralization is obviously the opposite of blockchain. So we're not a blockchain company. But it's also not a package manager replacement. Like we're here to partner with people like NPM. This is a package manager enhancer. This is a quote from Yarn. They're a package manager. And this is instructions on how to sort of associate your NPM package with package registry. So I'm here. I'd love for you to sign up, but if you want to talk to me about this actual feature as well as other things that we're doing, that's my job. So talk to me. And by the way, this is GitHub. Repositories are upstairs. Like it's a private after party later. We'll look at all the code. All right. I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you have one.
Yeah, I stole another one. Damn it. It's always embarrassing when somebody's got better jokes than me. And it happens so frequently. Oh, man. We do have a few other things that we want to cover. First off, if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi, the password's on the screen right now, but it's going away. Second, housekeeping. If you haven't already figured out where the bathrooms are, where the food is, and what you can and cannot explore, it's pretty much this. If you encounter a locked door, don't try to open it. If you see a rope, don't try to cross it. The restrooms are directly behind you and to your left. The food was that way if you didn't find it already. We also have a code of conduct. We stole it. We're not ashamed of it. It was open source. So please, if you haven't read our code of conduct, or if you don't even know what one is, take a look. So far, to my knowledge, we haven't had any complaints of people violating that code of conduct, and I would like to maintain that through this evening. So please just do us all a favor. Be awesome to each other. That's pretty much all you got to do. And finally, the last bit of my spiel before we get our first speaker up here is I'm begging, I'm pleading. We need somebody to host us next month. Seriously. Like, I don't know how else to tell you this, but if your company has a space that can host us, that would be awesome. Also, if you yourself have something that you want to talk about, if you've got an open source project you've been working on, if you've got something cool that you think other people want to hear about, please, 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 please go to GitHub. Go to github.com/SFNode, open an issue on our issue tracker, and that is how we receive our talk proposals. That is also how we receive proposals for hosts and other things. You can find us on Twitter at SFNode. You can find us at email at teamsfnode@gmail.com. And our YouTube channel, which this will be on, I don't know when, but since we're live streaming, we'll probably link to it. YouTube/SFNode. Also, at the end of every one of these, our co-organizer, Winston, likes to send out these lovely Google surveys. And they really are useful. They tell us what you want to know. They tell us how we can improve. Take the 2 minutes tomorrow morning, or whenever Winston comes back from, what was it, El Salvador? Take the 2 minutes, fill out that survey. You could do it over your morning coffee. It's fine. We don't care. But please do that. It really helps us out. And with all of that out of the way, I would like to welcome our first speaker up to the stage. You've seen him here about 2.5 years ago, if you were here for that. Yeah, it was a while ago, but it was a dope show, and we're looking at the sequel. So please welcome to the stage Vomik Deshpande. Okay.
I think AJ will turn it on.
Yeah, is he going to turn on?
Yeah, I think it's on.
You're good?
So, it's version 3 now. No volume, no sound. Hello?
You have to speak.
But I need to type as well.
Right, so carry that one with you. You're walking around stage, and then when you
Oh, okay. So my name is Valmik. I'm a software engineer at PayPal, and I'm really stoked for speaking at GitHub. This is the second time, and I'm thankful for the SFNode guys for letting me come here again, allowing me around this premises. The thing is, GitHub has the best sound ever. I have done this kind of a talk elsewhere. Wherever I've gone, I've never gotten a sound which is equivalent to GitHub sound. It's just fantastic, and hopefully we're going to have a... So there are only two things that can happen tonight. Either we're going to have a good time, or I'm going to screw up spectacularly, because nobody makes music like this. Either ways, I mean, if I screw up, you guys will have a laugh, and you win any which ways. You know, if we have a good time or if you laugh, you win. So the reason, okay, before I go on actually, is there anybody who produces music? Plays music or whatever? Okay, quite a lot, that's not bad. And is there anybody over here who writes JavaScript? Oh wow, almost all. So what I want to tell you now is, all of you are able to produce electronic dance music, at least after this talk. I've created this library that I want to present tonight, which will let you use string and arrays and then string and array methods to produce electronic dance music. It's called ScribbleTune. It's written in TypeScript. I recently wrote it in TypeScript. It has a bunch of methods like sessions and stuff. I've used Ableton Live for getting a lot of inspiration in terms of what kind of methods I want to provide in this library. You can use chords and scale names directly in your code. And there's something called patterns, which I will discuss a little bit at depth on the next screen. Like I mentioned, you can use string and array methods. Since it's made of strings and arrays, you can use the string methods and the array methods on top of your patterns to create intricate stuff so that you can have... Shadi? I'm sorry. So, yeah, so you can use string and array functions. The other item is you can use it either in the browser, that's what I'm going to present today, and as well as on the terminal. So the TypeScript module transpiles to a Node module that you can import and directly produce music from the terminal. At the same time, you can import it, use some Webpack or Parcel or something like that, and transpile it to a JavaScript file that you can then import in your browser and perform that way. And the last thing is it also produces a JavaScript file which is on a CD in JS. So let's say you don't want to put in too much time in exploring how this thing works. You can just quickly use JSBin or JSFiddle or CodePen or what have you. And then you can use the CDN file, and you can try out the methods. And the last point is it solves all your problems. I have a very strong feeling that I may not be able to get into that segment, but if I do, I can assure you it solves all your problems. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems, by the way. So it can help you in solving all those problems. And I hope I can get into that if I have time. I want to be respectful about the next speaker as well, so that's why I'm saying that. So, so ScribbleTune is, I must mention these three modules, because without them, I don't have ScribbleTune. It began with the first one, that's called JS Midgen. It's by a guy called Dave Ingram. He's SRE at Google. He produced this, he created this pure JavaScript library that lets you create MIDI binary files that you can import into software such as Ableton Live, Reason, Cubase, even GarageBand. I used that library, put my pattern language on top of it, and created a very easy to use interface so that you can produce MIDI files from the terminal. The talks that I gave initially used to do that exactly. I would produce MIDI files, import them into Ableton Live, and produce a live track on the spot. What I realized soon is that I'm talking about open source software. I'm inside GitHub, which is the biggest proponent for open source, and I'm using $1,000 software for producing the music. So I had to get out of that, which is where the second thing comes into the picture. That's Stone.js. That's by this guy called Yotam Mann. He's from New York. Brilliant programmer, very nice programmer. He's put together this wrapper for the web audio API, which I will discuss a little bit. Tone.js is just fantastic. So I'm using Tone.js as a dependency so that I can take my pattern language into the browser, and you can produce full-length tracks and perform them right in the browser, which we will do tonight. And then lastly, chords and scales. Excuse me. So there's this library called Tonal by this guy called Danny G. He's from Spain. Initially, I had written all the music theory code inside ScribbleTune itself, but then I soon found this library and I realized there's no point in having two things doing the same thing, and in the spirit of open source, let's use what already exists. Let's not reinvent the wheel. If you want, you can contribute something to that if it doesn't exist in that repository. And I switch to tonal. It gives me the music theory that I can use inside my module, and then some. Web Audio API. I must take a moment for Web Audio API because this has changed spectacularly what you can do in the browser. Web Audio API is not necessarily new. It's been there for a while. But the thing is, it used to use this thing called script processor node in the browser. It is a call-based event system. Nothing wrong with that. The only problem is it would run in the same thread as your UI stuff is running. So the user is moving the mouse, dragging something, clicking something, all of that, single-threaded, right? It's running in the same thread. That event callback system is running in the same thread with callbacks. There's nothing wrong with that, but it introduces a very important bad thing, and that's latency. In music, if you have latency, you don't have music. You need precise timing. So what Web Audio API did since Chrome 60, at least about a year ago, they introduced the same activity which script processor node did, which is basically to give you lower level access to the machine. They moved it to audio web workers. So what that does is you have two different threads now. One is for your UI stuff, what the user is doing and whatnot, and the other is the audio web worker running on a completely different thread, processing audio. This gives precision. Without precision, you don't have music. Music needs the perfect timing. Even if it is crappy music, it needs perfect timing to be even called music. So Web Audio API to the rescue. And like I mentioned, Tone.js is the wrapper that I'm using for Web Audio API. Okay, patterns. I'm going to take a moment for describing what patterns are. Excuse me. This is a simple 5 or 6 character-based language that I've put together that you can use in your code. Basically a string. And the last item over there is a new feature that I've put together. Every time I give a talk, I come up with a new feature. In a way, if there were no talks, my library would have had the only one feature that I created 5 years ago. So this is a new feature that I'm going to present today for the first time. But let's start from the top. X stands for note on, and minus stands for note off. For folks who dabbled with music, you may have played with a step sequencer at some point. So step sequencer is like a tool by which you can take a bar of music. Now what is a bar of music? Or a measure of music, or let's say 2 seconds of music. Let's say you divide that into 16 parts. Now that is your steps, 16 steps to complete this one bar. So this X and minus lets you define note on and note off events for that duration of 1 bar of 16 beats. I'm using 16 as just an example. It's not necessary it should be 16. It can be 32, it can be 64, it can be 8, or it can be 4 as well. But I have noticed that EDM producers generally talk in the 16-beat paradigm. So that's why I use the example of 16 beats. The square braces are for subdividing existing beat. So let's say you have a beat which is of a quarter note, and you put square braces around it, you can divide it further. This sounds very weird till we do some actual coding. Once we do the coding, you'll realize what I'm talking about. But basically, because of this subdivide, you can create intricate patterns from the X and minuses. And the last is R, random. So what happens is, if anybody tries to produce music like this, the way I'm trying to show you, the chances are you're going to produce a lot of monotonous stuff. Monotonous stuff is an essential aspect of EDM because it lets you create that you can drive towards a high of some sort. But you need to be careful. If you cannot break that monotony every now and then, you do not have music. So the purpose of introducing R is to break that monotony. And hopefully I can present that in an example. Make some noise. Finally, this is what I was waiting for. So I have a couple of projects. One will use the CDN version of ScribbleTune. And it will outline, like, if you want to quickly get started with ScribbleTune and do some stuff, you can use this. I'm just going to start a Python web server over here on port 3000. And open it up over here. Right? I have 2 buttons over there. I hope you can see them. There are 2 buttons over there. The reason for putting buttons is, for security reasons, Web Audio API will not let you just directly start music on the load of the page. They need a user action for doing that. So these start and stop buttons are going to act as our UI element where the user can kind of click and do stuff. Before I go and make a fool of myself, let me check if the sound is on. AJ, I hope you're with me, man. So this is a point where you get to get a first taste of what I mean when I say GitHub sound. And hopefully I'll be giving you a lot more of it. But let's start like really small. AJ, I'm counting on you. Okay, sound is on. So that was a closed hat sample sound, right? Then I have a cymbal kind of sound, right? So these are not loops. These are just singular sound samples. Here's a kick, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use that X minus R, that weird little 5-character language that I showed. We're going to put it together in such a way that it sounds a bit rhythmic. That's the idea. So these are the sound samples. I'll just move over to the code now. Okay, so I have this index file which kind of loads those 2 buttons and loads ScribbleTune from CDN. And it has this file. It has some commented stuff which we can look into later. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start typing some code and show you how easy it is to get started. So the CDN version of ScribbleTune exposes a global method called Scribble. I don't recommend using this method or this way of producing music, but like I said, if you want to just get your hands dirty and quickly try out stuff, that's good enough. So let's do Scribble and use the first method of ScribbleTune called clip. Clip is like a container for a musical idea. It can be a melodic idea, rhythmic idea, harmonic idea, whatever it is. It's like a container for your musical idea, and you can pass an object to it. It just got one argument, the object, and that object can have multiple properties. One of them is sample. Let's use a sample file for this, and let's use kick.wave, the kick that I made you hear just a few moments ago, and then we'll give it a pattern. Let's say the pattern is just X just for this example. So since we're in the context of the browser, I'm using Tone.js behind the scenes. Tone.js is going to give me a loop when I execute that. And hence, since it's a loop, it's going to keep on going over and over again. This single X is the same as doing multiple X's. It's the same thing. It's not really different because it's a loop. Unless you introduce an element like a minus or a R or something. So to start with, I'm just going to do X. And then this is going to give me a sequence that I can start. Okay? That was Prettier that adjusted that thing. Actually, just one single line if you go to see. Prettier made it into 4 or 5 lines. And then we go back over here, reload the damn thing, and then if you play it, right? This is the sound I'm talking about. So we can do more of this, right? We don't need to be limited to just one sound sample. As I said, these are sound samples. And instead of kick, we'll take a closed hat sample. That's called just ch.wave. They're just right next to me over here. And then we'll use another pattern. I'm subdividing by default, a X is a quarter note of length by default, but you can subdivide it with those square braces. Now it becomes 2 8 notes because it got divided into 2. And now if you play that bit, it becomes, yeah. And let's keep on going. Let's add one more to this thing. Oops. Let's add one more to this. And let's make a snare, open hat sound, why not? And maybe we can do it something like, we can subdivide this further and make this open hat pattern like this. Yeah. And let's add a snare drum to it so that we have a full beat. Okay. Snare, I have all these wave files already sitting in the same folder. That's why I'm able to just use them directly. And we will have this pattern for the snare drum. So if we had a sufficient quantity of beer, that could pass for music. Right? Let's say I had a crate of beers. I know that's a lot. If I had a crate of beers, I could totally groove on that. Right? A crate of beer could help me do that. So the objective for tonight is to reduce the amount of booze we need to consume in order to make something acceptable. So one way to do that is, some days ago I came across this guy who's called Ethan Hine. He's an adjunct professor of music in NYU. He put together this spreadsheet. I hope, yeah. what he did is he put together some classic breakbeats in 16 steps, and if you can see, what he's doing is he's got these filled cells to denote a note on and empty cells to denote a note off. To me, that reads like x minus x minus 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 x and so on. So what I did is I transpile all of that into a JSON file. This is how it looks. Each of these files is just a representation of that thing. And I have just, instead of doing this each individual clip, ultimately it's a drum pattern, right? So instead of doing this individual clip, what I'll do is, I've got this variable called loop. It has 4 instruments, just like from that Excel sheet. And then I'm just looping over those and creating a scribble clip out of it. If I play that, do you see the number of beers going down now that we need? That is the whole objective. We are going to reduce the number of beer we need, amount of beer that we need. So that is a quick example of how you can use this. And before I go on to the next segment, what I want to show is maybe some melodic aspects. So far we've been just dealing with rhythm. Let's try to deal with a melodic aspect of things. So I'm going to create a clip. And to start with, I'll just create, and I need to introduce one more thing over here called samples. So earlier on, I did something called sample, which took a single wave file. Now I'm going to say something like samples and give it samplers.piano. Before I move on, I'll tell you what that is. So these are my sounds. I have these samplers. All that they are is, so for example, piano, I have these multiple wave files. Each of them coincides with C or D or E or all the notes of the octave. So for example, it's just a single note, right? Multiple notes like this. And I'm going to use these different notes to produce something melodic. So I use samplers.piano, and I'm going to use a pattern. For now, we'll just call it a single X. So it's a quarter note. Every quarter note will play one of those samples. And now we need to tell ScribbleTune what are those samples that we want to play. So I'm going to use a method in ScribbleTune called scribble.scale. Like I said, you can use scales and chord names directly in ScribbleTune, and we'll stick to the key of D minor, just for the heck of it. C major is too cliched, I guess. And then, so that's why I said let's do D minor, and then start. Let's just see how that sounds. It's going to sound quite idiotic actually, but it's fine to just start with. And what we'll do is we'll double that thing. We'll take this guy and we'll do one more version of it. And in here, we'll keep the same notes, but we'll change the subdivision. So for example, it's a quarter note by default. Let's make it 8th note. So what happens because of that is, it kind of divides that quarter note into 8 notes. And now if we play that, so some amount of melodic aspect is coming to the music now. Still, we need a lot of beer, because we can't still tolerate that, obviously. So let's continue to, and another thing is, right now we are in this context of a browser with just a button over here and some code that I'm writing. What we want to really do is to be able to use the browser to create a application that helps us produce and perform live as well, you know. Can you imagine a DJ doesn't come with a turntable, just the browser? So that's where we are going. That's where we're going to try to go. And I think we can get rid of this guy. So I'm going to open up another project. I'll close this guy. We can get rid of the Python server. And then this is another folder that I have over here. I'm using Create React App. So Create React App is a very nice utility. I'm sure everybody knows about it. It's very famous. It's like a nice little thing. You don't want to get worried about the tooling and whatnot. You can directly start playing with your components, start building your app, start dealing with your business logic. So I'm using Create React App to power this. I'll just do npm start. And here, it should already open up on its own. Are you doing it? What the hell? What is going on? This has to happen, right? Okay, so I wonder if it's visible. On some of the screens it is visible, but on this one it's not so much. If I mouse over, you can see that these are all various clips, and these are channels. These are various channels. And towards the right, can you see that button over there? What it's supposed to do is, it's supposed to play the entire row of clips. These are supposed to be clips. They're all empty right now. We're going to fill them up. So this idea is directly from Ableton Live. Ableton Live has this session view where they give you this columns thing where you can insert clips, and then you can either trigger the entire row of clips, or you can individually click through and play individual clips, and in a live kind of an environment, you can produce something interesting, hopefully. So we're going to do something like that. So right now, as you can see, these are all empty clips, and I'm going to fill at least half of them to get started. So let's do that. And what I've got over here is, I have, where is my GQL file? Okay, so the way I'm looking at this whole thing is that this is a GraphQL. So I'm using GraphQL for managing the client state. So far, we've been using Redux, obviously, and some of you may have started using Apollo for the client state, but primarily we've been using Redux or some other client state management paradigm. So lately, a lot of companies are investing a lot of money, talent, time, energy into GraphQL. So they have this whole paradigm where there's a single network request to an endpoint, single endpoint, where you can get your state, and then you can paint a picture on the browser. So what happens is, you make a query, you get the data. You want to update some data over there, you want to change something, you want to mutate something, you send a mutation, right? So you do your queries and your mutations, you get the data, you paint the picture, but for painting the picture, suddenly you context switch into Redux, where you want to do reducers, you want to do actions, you want to do this map state to props and whatnot. So suddenly the way you're dealing with data is completely changed. So the idea here is, use the same lingo for getting the data from the server and mutating over there. At the same time, whatever data that you have on the client side, that client store, use queries to get data from there to paint the picture. Or if you want to update that client store, use mutations for that. So that is the objective. For the sake of this set, I have these four mutations, and a single query. So the idea is, the client UI state, this guy looks like this. If there were a couple of clips on him, he'd look a little bit different. So the client's UI state has changed. So we'll use mutation to change that UI state. And at the same time, if you look at an EDM track or a track that you want to perform or produce or whatever, that track also has various states. It has an intro, there is some outro, there is some middle part and all that, and you're going from one part to the other, you're trying to trigger one clip over here, another clip over there. That is a mutation on the track. So I have these resolvers for those mutations. My resolvers are, where are my resolvers? No, not this. There. So I have these resolvers over here. So one of the mutation is to start or stop a track. So that is a state of the musical piece that we're going to play. Either it's stopped right now, like it is right now, it's stopped right now. We're going to change the state of the track to it is playing right now, right? It's a state change. Same with the UI for start and stop. There's a button you'd want to show some visual element to suggest that, oh, the track is playing now. Same applies to the clips. Each of these clips, okay, there is no clip over here. Let me add one clip quickly. Okay, so what I've opened over here is, it could have very well been a JSON object. It's a JavaScript object literal. But what this is it's just a definition of what samples I want to use. So these are the various samples I'm using for the kick, for the bass, for the closed hat, for the open hat and whatnot. And these are the clips. As you can see, they're all empty. They're just empty objects. This is my state. This is my client state. And I'm using Apollo over here in my provider. This client that I'm providing to the provider is just writing this track, this initial track, which is completely empty as the initial state of this store. As you can see, there is no URL parameter over here because I'm not making any server requests. I'm managing the entire state only on the client side. And if you go back to this GQL thing, one very nice thing, important thing to note is this client directive. Everyone has a client directive. What that means is, please don't make any network call. what I'm trying to get at or what I'm trying to mutate is on the local store. That's what the client directive means. So we are managing the client store with queries and mutations, and we are managing the track with queries and mutations as well. So just to drive the point home, I'm going to take one of these examples over here, and I'm going to write a pattern that we can play with. So we'll do a simple pattern for now. Just this, and how about and we'll subdivide it further. Now you can see that one of the clips has got active. That's because I've changed the store by hand, and it's active now. And it has this play state ready for us. We can click it and we can play it. If we play, maybe I should start this first, but if I click it and play it, and now it's gone into that state where it says you can stop it as well. And it stops now. And the other thing about ScribbleTune is that it will not just abruptly start or stop. It will consider the BPM that you're going at and accordingly start on the next beat. It won't just abruptly start something like that. And I'm using obviously Tone.js behind the scenes for making all this happen. So that is one clip I put over there. I'm going to repeat this clip a bunch of times. My aim is to create at least half of the track manually like this. Second half, I'll just, because time is a constraint obviously. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to bring in some sound effects. EDM tracks are incomplete without sound effects. So I have some sound effects over here, if I can show them quickly. If I go to GitHub Live, all this is in my GitHub, so if you want to take it later on, these sound samples and everything, it's all available, you can take them. So samples, and let's take this effect sound, okay? Yeah, that's all the sound does. Or another sound. Yeah. So I'm going to use these sounds. And again, I'm going to use that X minus X and that R, that kind of a paradigm to produce the loop that I'm going to play. So let's start with the effects that we heard. And another thing I can introduce at this point is, okay, let's start with the first one. And the pattern will be, so for the next 3 or 4 minutes, this is going to get seriously boring because I'm typing into a JSON file. I'm not doing anything beyond that. So this can be really boring to watch. I'll try my best to speak in between and all that, but I'm warning you, it's going to get really boring. But after that, we will have reduced at least 3 beers that we need to listen to it or to tolerate it. So the first effects I'm going to use is this pattern. And then I'm going to introduce one more property for this clip called subdiv, which we used earlier to divide the pattern, but this time I'm going to extend the pattern. Instead of having a 16-note pattern, I'm going to have a full measure. Because it's a special effect, it's a longer effect kind of a thing, I wanted to go over the entire bar. So let's do 1M. M stands for measure, one measure. If you have not dabbled with music, it may not make so much sense, but a simpler way to look at it is that now you're provisioning a little longer space for that effect to play itself. And what we're going to do is, we're going to just repeat this a bunch of times. Because EDM is all about repetitive music, right? So it's repetitive, so it's totally fine. As long as we can break the monotony every now and then, we're good. So I'll do it like 5 times, because I want to make at least half the track. There are like 10 clips, 10 rows over there. And then I'm going to use this pattern for another pattern. And this one is going to be like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, we'll do the same thing about the subdiv. Is going to be 1 measure long. So that's how long this pattern is, and I'm going to repeat them again. So let's repeat this. Oops. What the hell am I doing? Okay. Yeah, that's good. So I've got 5 of them. Yeah, that's 5 of them. And there is this impact sound. That's going to be like the underlying theme of our intro. And that's going to sound really nice. And it's like one whole bar of just this. And we'll repeat it sparingly. We won't repeat it too many. I'm sorry, someone said something? Semicolon? Oh yeah. Thank you so much. We're going to see more of this now. And I'm just going to use it here and here, comma. Okay, so you guys can be my JSCS or ESLint. So we'll get into the piano part later. So I have some of this stuff going over here. And let me add a kick drum sound on the 4th. And the kick drum sound is going to be this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On the 8th one, we'll do some variation. And we'll bring in R, the new feature that I wrote for this particular talk. And we'll continue it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we'll do another variation at the end over here. Yeah. And for the bass, we will do, we are in the key of D. So notes can be, we'll just have a single note going along with this pattern. And the pattern, I'm going to introduce R again, obviously. And this time I'm going to add one more property to it called random notes. So R works in two ways. One is either it will randomly decide if it wants to do a note on or a note off event, or if you give it random notes, it's just going to pick one of those notes. And what we'll do is, for the random notes, we'll give it the D minor scale again. So D2 minor. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've got what we want. And now if we look back at this guy, so it's kind of filled up now. I just hope I haven't screwed up, because I haven't heard any of it, right? Yeah, it seems fine. It seems fine. So what I've got is I've got a bunch of clips on some of the channels, and I've filled it like halfway through. That was my aim. The rest of the half, we'll just pull in stuff. So when I do talks before, folks ask me like, do you practice this stuff, or are you just typing whatever that comes to your mind? So obviously, I'm not typing whatever comes to my mind. In fact, even real musicians, they practice like hell before they go on stage and play anything. Even impromptu stuff, they've practiced for years, and then they've gone and played something impromptu. If they haven't been doing that, they're not performing anymore. So yeah, so I know what I'm doing. I mean, at least to some extent. So this is how we're going to start. I had these 3 sound effects. I made you guys listen to those sound effects. So we'll start with those sound effects. And we can obviously stop clips. And then let's bring in a snare drum. I'm waiting for it for the right time. Let me know when I should drop it. Should I drop it? AJ, can you pump up the volume a bit? Yeah. And the sound effects are going on. And I can keep going back, forth all night, obviously. Yeah, so you get the picture, right? Thank you. So I think we have reduced the amount of booze that we need a little bit more. Shall we reduce it a little bit more? Yeah. Furthermore? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to keep typing like this because it will get seriously boring as I start getting some melodic elements into this and typing it by hand. So I'm going to just get in something that I've already put together, which is more or less on this line, on these lines, and hopefully it'll coincide to a large extent. And I'm just going to use that instead to drive the point home. And I'll just walk through some of the new things that I introduced. One is obviously I'm using chord names directly in the code. These notes, this D minor, B flat major, and if you have played with music, dabbled with music, it will make sense to you that these are chord names. And then I've got this new method called ARP. ARP stands for Arpeggio. So Arpeggio means you take a chord, take its individual notes and play them individually. And the interesting thing about the ARP feature of ScribbleTune is that, so let's say you have a chord, and let's say it's made up of 3 notes. So you can you can tell Scribble that I want a count of 8. So it'll take 3 notes of that chord, take 3 more notes from the next octave, and put 2 more from even the next octave. So now you have 8 notes, and you can give the order of the notes that you want to play it. So what that translates to ultimately is that you have endless options for creating arpeggios of various styles. I'm using that piano instrument like I showed some time back. I'm using the piano instrument to play some arpeggios. I've also got a saw, super saw kind of a sound. Again, these are individual sounds. So at the moment, we're creating a very cliched kind of a EDM track, right? So no cliched EDM track can function without a proper saw sound. So I've got a saw sound as well. So there's a saw, and there is a kind of a pad kind of a sound. So to take the cliched paradigm a little bit further, so we have a pad kind of a sound as well. So these are the only few things that I introduced for the rest of the track. And if you go from the top again, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing that we put together. It's like a clap sound kind of thing. You guys should know now when the drop is going to come. Yeah, now. And I can keep going back and forth, of course. And now there is a part that I have which kind of breaks down all of this into a kind of a subset before going into the strings. I think it's this one. Yeah, so we kind of go down a little bit before we move on to the strings and the piano and all that. Yeah, so this is like a kind of a pensive, kind of a thoughtful kind of a part where you can think where your life is going and all that. So before you kind of figure out, oh, I don't know what the hell is going on, I'll party anyways. So, and there's that arc function now. Now, so this is an arpeggio thing. Can I have one more drop away, I think. It's not here. And now the cliched part. Yeah, this is the cliched part. From here on, we can take it anywhere we want. We can stop the track, or we can take it further. What should I do? Should I take it further, or should I stop it? Yeah, thank you for saying that. I had to ask twice. What the hell? And then we go to the previous part. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. really means a lot to me. Yeah, so I guess that's it from my side. If there are any questions or whatever. Yeah, sure. You can do that? Oh my God.
I mean, I think you could catch it.
Do you have any plans to support non-sampled synthesizers like
Oh
live
yeah.
synthesis?
The support already exists. Just for the sake of this presentation, I depended on samples. But since I'm using Tone.js as a dependency, you already have synths, you have effects, and if you can visit scribbletune.com, there you can see, for example, actually I can show it to you. And there are multiple kind of apps that you can make. Okay, this guy has gone into like. So here's some code that I'm writing chords with, and I'm using a synth to play it. So it's a similar thing, right? I'm using ARP and whatnot. Yeah, so that kind of stuff. You can use synths, and you can put your patterns and notes and melodies and stuff using synths. Yeah, so you can totally use synths. But that's a good question, yeah. I believe you produce, that means. Any other questions?
Are you actually one of the members of Daft Punk?
Yeah, where's my mask? No, yeah, man. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so another thing I can quickly show is it's not just about producing music stuff. You can even produce applications. Now this application doesn't produce any music. You can have, it's like it gives you tablatures for if you're practicing some scale or something, like C, Mixolydian or whatever, you can refer to this and sit with your instrument and kind of work your scale out. It works for the piano and also for the keyboard. So if you're using a computer keyboard for producing music, you can just reference this and use it in your productions. So that's another way of looking at it. Yeah, and that's scribbletune.com if you can take a look at it. And if possible, you're sitting inside GitHub, right? Star my repository. So right now I have 2964, almost 3,000 stars. There are about 200 people, I think, tonight. So 3,200, shall we put an ETA for midnight tonight? 3,200? Please go home and star it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. If you want some questions, I can answer them later.
Thank you very much, Valmik.
Thank you.
For the record, I did not need any beers for that talk, but I definitely had some. Because GitHub was so gracious as to provide us with alcohol this evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. One man clapping. I just wanted to let you know that we have one more great talk ahead of us, but first, I think we could all use a break. So let's take 5 minutes, go get yourself another beverage, use the restroom, go ahead and head back on in here. We're gonna call it 8:15.
still live streaming, so they can still hear.
Oh, cool. We're streaming.
Serverless
Oh my
computing
God.
with Apache.
Like after that talk. I'm gonna ask people to go get more beers.
So he did give an earlier version that's probably 2.5 years ago. It was the biggest attendance we've ever had. This place was pretty damn. It was like 150 people, which
So I feel like you can go two ways. You can go that way, where it's like, or you can go like, what can I use at work tomorrow?
yeah.
It's also okay, but it's not as much fun.
Yeah, it's what can I dick around with at home?
Right.
Or what can I actually use at work?
Right. And they're both important.
They are. You know, one, you gotta go to your boss. Hey, I saw this cool thing I think we should use.
True, but it's open source, so that's good.
Yeah, it's true. But
One thing is like the talks, meetup things that it's my idea, it's not me.
oh yeah.
If somebody asked me to do it, so that came across a little bit.
I mean,
Which I'll correct it.
yeah. I mean, you can if you like.
I mean, it's community, so it's everybody. It's okay.
You know, hey, open source is great. Anybody can contribute.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Right. Okay. Oh, let me start. I'm going to start like a 30-minute.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Neil.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Sorry.
Howdy, folks. If you're still standing up and
You can leave.
chatting about, I'm gonna yell at you very quickly. It's gonna happen. Okay.
Hey, folks! Grab your seats. Get ready for our second talk.
Thank you very much. How is this, Joe? Is this better? Is this better? Sorry, I can't, even with the microphone, I can't quite compete with Valmic's music. Oh, hang on. I'm seating the microphone.
Because I have a nice story to tell. You know, I bought a DeLorean recently. If you know, there's a documentary about the AMC Motor Company that made the DeLorean. And I'm super excited to own a DeLorean because I get to drive it from time to time. We've got another great talk coming up. If everyone could grab their seats, we do have a little bit of a hard stop at 9 p.m. So we're trying to get this next talk in and still have plenty of room for 15 seconds of fame for everybody to get your plugs in. So if everyone who is part of SFNode, you probably can't hear me way out there, but come on back, take a seat. We're ready to get started.
Cool, so if I stop in 30, is that good?
That'd be
Yeah, that's fine. So you'll have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Jesus. We're not exactly all together with it today. I'm just going to be here for a second. I just want to introduce to the stage our second speaker for the night. I actually didn't catch your last name, so I'm just going to go with your first name. Please welcome to the stage, Upkar.
Thank you. This is good. So, can you hear me? Do I have to like bend down, or is this okay? This is okay? Like I feel like after that, the last talk. Ooh, cool. So I feel like after that last talk, my ears are gone. So if back there you can hear me? Yeah. All right, cool. And also, thank you for staying back. There's stuff happening down there too. So anyways, my name is Upkar, I work for IBM, and I am here to talk about serverless. Neil's heard this talk, me give this talk like 10 times so far maybe. You can probably come up here, give the rest of it. But yeah, so who's worked with serverless in their workplaces or home or whatever? Okay, cool, quite a few people. And then like, what do you use it for? Just like quick answers. Chatbots. Cool. Schedule jobs. Nice. Who else? I saw some hands back there. What platform? Contact form. Cool. Nice. Okay, yeah, good. So for people who don't know what serverless is, good news, bad news kind of situation here. I guess bad news, there is no serverless. It's somebody else's container. And I like that sticker. I actually don't have it on my laptop. But yeah, the point, two points, right? So one is that the stuff with serverless, it's stuff you've worked with before. It's nothing new, right? It's like when people started doing Ajax, right? It wasn't new, but so it's the same thing with serverless. And then instead of like trying to come up with my own definition of what this is, if you want to know more about serverless, there is a Cloud Native Computing Foundation website. So CNCF, if you go look for it online, it has tons of information, white papers about serverless. So I'm just this is an introduction, but you can get more information there. And like you said, the idea is to code and not worry about provisioning servers, maintaining servers. That's the whole idea. But it's not a magic bullet. I'm sure people who do it at work, there's still a lot of work involved to build something with serverless. And then I've listed some of the use cases here. So like you said, chatbots. So maybe that falls into the second one, where you're creating microservices or some sort of service in the back end. An example that one of the companies that uses OpenWhisk, which I'll talk about, is when you take a picture of a check that somebody gives you, and then the service actually runs OCR and then talks to the bank and you get money. So they implemented that using OpenWhisk as a service. Somebody said API or form. Maybe that's an API hitting an API. So that's the other one, and it's kind of cool. I like that because you get scaling for free with a lot of these serverless. You get API gateways and scaling for free, right? I mean, nothing's for free, but you get it. It sort of comes with it. And the last one, which is the most interesting one, is event-driven programming, right? So that's where you have a lot of services, and they don't really. It's like the microservices pattern where they're not dependent on each other, but everything's done through sort of a message hub or events. And I'll show you what events are supported by OpenWhisk. So again, leans well to like small, focused, asynchronous tasks. If you have, the demand is infrequent, you don't know how much demand you're going to get. That being said, also, if you're paying to have your service up all the time, then it kind of gets expensive, right? So that's one of the downsides. I want to be there right now. All right.
It'll be less exciting.
No, I don't mean to shut them down, but okay. And then I have a couple of examples, right? So if you have, again, this is for beginner serverless people. And so the idea is here, it's a game app like Fortnite or something, and then a new dance comes out, and everybody wants to use it and play the game. So the demand goes up, but you don't know by how much, and you don't know how much it's going to last. And so the idea is don't pay for the red stuff, right? That's when it's down. This is like a conference app. Every morning you get up and you're excited, and you look at the schedule, and you do your thing on the app. So it's heavy usage, and then over the day it goes down, over the week it goes down as well, right? So it's all about cost at the end of the day. And that's what I meant by if it's always up and running, then serverless may not be the best idea. Oh, and then I get asked a lot if this is like a new thing because people are hearing about it now, but actually there's a lot of players involved. So this is again, it's maybe hard to see back there, but it's again from CNCF, and you can like hover over each company and see what they do. If they have the bottom one is the installable one, so that's all the open source stuff that you can install on your own, and there's the platform. So you have Lambda, Microsoft, Google, IBM's in there, and a whole bunch more, right? So this thing changes every week or so. And this is the other thing I get asked. Since I work for IBM, it's like, what do you guys do special that the other guys don't have, or how is it different? And it's really hard to say, because again, the whole landscape is changing very, very, it's first of all, constantly and also very frequently. So it's probably best to just look at what features are provided and use what you want to use, right? What fits your needs. So OpenWhisk, Apache OpenWhisk, it was an open source, it was a project started by IBM Research and then donated to Apache. you can see IBM is one of the members. Adobe just went production with their serverless platform called I/O. I think it's called Adobe I/O, which is also based on OpenWhisk. The interesting thing with the IBM version, our cloud version, is that it's literally the master branch of OpenWhisk with a lot of UI around it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then Red Hat, again, long before, they're now sort of partners with IBM, but even before that, they were working on OpenWhisk. And yeah, so to use OpenWhisk, if you want to install it on your laptop, it's really simple. It installs a whole bunch of Docker images. And you just need to know 3 things. So actions is your actual code that's running on the cloud. Triggers are things that fire when something happens externally. And then rules are what connects the two. So again, like I said, at least OpenWhisk is fairly easy to understand. And so this is what it looks like. The actions at the bottom are your different languages, so different runtime. If you don't see something here that you really want to use, there's a Docker box. So as long as you can run your code on Docker, you can push it onto OpenWhisk on the cloud. And then triggers are what gets fired when an external event happens, like I said. So there's different kinds. So there's social triggers. So for example, somebody puts a message on Slack. So somebody built this demo app where every time a message comes into Slack, it fires an action which checks, using NLP if the message is abusive, and then takes an action. And same thing with pictures they were doing. Github is another interesting example. So every time there's a commit or a pull request, you can trigger your actions to do something interesting. What else? Data changes is, anytime there's an insert or a delete or an update or a new document created, you can, again, fire a trigger. The example there was every time a document came into, I think it was Dropbox or Box, they would do auto-tagging. So they would go through the document and, again, using NLP, pick out the entities and keywords and tag the document with that. And same thing with images. IoT is also very interesting. With the only thing with IoT is the amount of data that you get. You need some sort of middle layer to maybe package it up so that your API is not called as much as the IoT runs, right? And then again, rules is rules. There's nothing special to it. It literally binds a trigger to an action. That's all it does. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the flowchart thing, but again, this is point number 2. It's built on open source stuff, right? So people have worked, I'm sure, with Nginx before. That's the first thing that gets the request, and then it goes to the controller, which is a Scala code. Again, open source, you go take a look. It does a couple of things. One of them is load balancing, which means at the bottom you see the invokers. So the invokers are what actually runs your runtime, your Docker images. And the controller decides where to send your request to. And then there's a Couchdb. People heard of Couchdb? Right? So it's a NoSQL document-based database, and that's used for authorization, authentication, the credential stuff, but also used to see what kind of request is coming in. Also, when you upload your code, it gets stored in Couchdb as well. So again, it leverages open source solutions. Nothing special here, but I think the magic happens when you bring it all together. So this is me installing OpenWhisk on my computer. So as you can see, there's a bunch of Node.js runtimes. There's a Kafka message hub, as we saw in the previous chart or slide. And then there's, what is it called? The DB_1 is the Couchdb. So it's the very similar pieces we saw before. Oh, and then it comes with a very handy CLI. So you can, IBM provides a nice UI on top of OpenWhisk, but the WSK utility is what you can use to create your actions and triggers and rules and that sort of thing. And I'll show you a quick example. And then it comes with some inbuilt packages. So as we saw in the trigger stuff, there was Slack and GitHub and Facebook sort of thing. So this is what comes with OpenWhisk. So you can work with Slack actions, and the weather one's sort of okay. So nothing special there. Cloudent is interesting. Actually, I have a Cloudent summary here, right? So this is everything you can do with Couchdb or Cloudent. You can create stuff, delete attachments. You can work with indices. You can work with views. And then the last thing is called a feed, and that's where the trigger thing happens. So if I were to listen to this feed, I give it, so actually it says right there what it needs. It needs a DB name and a filter. So if and my API key. So if I give it those 3 pieces of information, it'll keep listening to that instance of Couchdb, and when something happens, it'll let me know. And then if I have a rule that connects that trigger to an action, then the action fires. So I'm actually going to skip some of this. This is showing a sample request that comes through. And also, if you can see, there's like Java stuff in there, and nobody wants to see that. All right, so this is how you write an action. Again, it's fairly simple. There's a method. It doesn't have to be called main, but by default, it looks for main. And then only 2 more conditions. It needs an object in and an object out in JavaScript. That's it. And then at the bottom, it tells you how to create an action, and then how do you, this one doesn't invoke an action, but we look at an example. This is the other way you can do it in JavaScript. So instead of returning, you're still sort of returning an object, but you're doing it in you're returning a promise, but within the resolve and reject, you have to pass back an object. So this is the other way to do it if you're working with promises and need to do asynchronous stuff and wait for things to finish inside your action. That's it. So we'll do a quick demo. And I know we are sort of tight on time, so I won't take too long. But what I've done is, and I don't know if people want to look at code at like 8:30 p.m., so we'll take it easy. So here's my directory. There's nothing in it except this file. And then all I have to do is define this. It takes params. And then if params has a name, then remember it has to return an object, so I'll return greeting, and then I'll just say hello to the name. If somebody finds a typo, let me know. Thank you. And then I'll just whatever. You must return an action, otherwise it's going to fail. So. All right, what's wrong here? Where do I need a curly?
You have parens instead of curly braces and after your if statement. Return paren instead of curly.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to copy paste my code. We can all write if statements. Apparently I can't, but all of you can write if statements. I trust. Okay, so going back to now our. By the way, who uses the little cow say thing? Anybody use that? You've used it? So it's like every time you open a prompt, it comes up with a little cow, and then there's a really nice saying, and you can customize what the saying, what category it can be. But every now and then, it cannot reach the network, or it's using like fortune in the background, and it says undefined by undefined, which to me, like I just sit there and read that forever, because that to me that's deep. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, so again, using the little command line thing, like now I can say whisk action create hello node, and then I'll just have to tell it where to get the file from, get it from there, and hopefully that just create an action. And in order to now actually run it, I say invoke the same thing. Now if I just leave it like this, it gives me back an activation ID. So everything you do in OpenWhisk comes back with some sort of activation ID. And that's what gets stored in Couchdb along with other logs and things. So that's how you look up stuff later. But if I do the same thing with a -r, then so that was on purpose because I want to show you how to update an action. So if you do this, hello node, and give it the same file, then this is how you update an action. And then I'll do the invoke again. So this time it comes back. So in the back end, it actually created that Node.js, I think it's 10 runtime, and put my code in there, ran it, and then gave me back the result. And now it's putting all the logs into Couchdb so I can, with the correct activation ID, so I can go look at that. The other thing I want to show you real quick is this is how you pass params. So I think it was called name. And if I pass it my name, then it just comes back with that, right? Easy, right? But like nobody's actually writing this hello world in real world, right? So you write more complicated applications. So that's where it gets interesting. So going back to my slides, I have a little bit more complicated example, and there's a GitHub repo in the slides. But basically, it takes you through. I don't know if this is going to. It's still fairly simple, but what it's doing is on the top right, there's a registration page, and as soon as you register, it sends you an SMS and an email. And just to show how you would think about building this in OpenVesc, I've divided up that sending email with SendGrid and sending SMS with Twilio in different actions, and then I've connected all of these through triggers and rules. So it's not too the application itself is not too complicated, but just if you want to try it out, it takes like 10-15 minutes to create. Fairly simple. But this is how it looks. There's a bunch of actions. And the first thing it's doing is when the user registers, stuff gets thrown into Couchdb. And there's a trigger listening for those changes. So as soon as it sees things coming into Couchdb, it reads it, and then it calls the notify user action. The notify user action fires 2 more triggers, one for email, one for text, and then those things are sent. So the idea here being each piece is sort of independent of the other, and it's doing one thing. So an action is doing a small task. And so here's where, if you wanted to remove the email piece or add a new piece, or let's say the email gets used way more than Twilio, then all of these things are independent and scale independently. All right, cool. So for a little bit more complicated applications, you can do something called composition. So now you can have your actions and sequence them together in different ways. So for example, you can, in this case, it's doing if authentication action works, then do the success and failure actions, right? So with the email, this would be the other way to do it. With the composition, it's a little bit more involved to actually create your file that gets deployed onto OpenVesc. So in this case, there are 2 other tools you need to use. And again, this is like a very community-driven project, right? It's completely open source. They have, the super cool thing was they have, it's called an inter-exchange call every 2 weeks, I believe, or maybe it's once a month. But that's where the whole community gets together. You can go on the call and suggest changes or volunteer to do open source contributions, and they're more than happy to have you. So I guess what I'm saying is because there are so many people involved, people build different tools to do the same thing, and then there's eventually there's a critical mass and consensus, and one gets to win. But that's how open source works. So again, this is making compositions, converting it into JSON, and then uploading the composition onto the cloud. So there's a lot more to OpenVesc, obviously, than what I showed. And there's plenty of resources. Actually, I have them here. There's plenty of resources to learn about OpenVesc. All of these slides have my Twitter handle down there. So if you want to talk to me or ask questions, feel free. Like I said, there's the Slack channel. They're super active. This one time I couldn't get it to install on my computer, and this guy called me and helped me. And it turns out he was the creator, like he's the founder of OpenVesc, and my problem was pretty trivial, and I was really embarrassed, but that's how they are. They're super welcoming. They have like a YouTube media social presence, and then the last one is the meeting that they have. And then there's something called CUI Shell. So it's an Electron app, and this is where I can do what I did before, so I can list all of my actions and triggers. So this is sort of the command line, but now you can visualize your actions. So if I say grid, it brings this up, and this is like how many times I've run my action. So there's an action called split. This one, apparently, I was doing something with Cloudinary, and it fails. That's the red. And if I click on it, it tells me, so the action did not return a dictionary, and then it has other logs that I can look at to see what happened. So to go back, the hello node is the one. Remember the first 2 times there were errors and then it worked. So it's kind of nice to visualize it this way. There's one more visualization, which is a summary, and that gives you like a timeline of all of the actions that are running on that instance of your OpenWhisk, right? And again, this tool is also completely open source. So if you want to contribute, get involved. And it lets you actually visualize your compositions, right? So you have, in this case, it's an if on a bunch of conditions and running different actions. But all of that JSON that you wrote, or first you wrote JavaScript and got converted to JSON, you can visualize that here. But like I said, it's not all sort of happy land, right? So if you're writing something more complex than what we attempted to write, then you have to think about these things. So firstly, OpenWhisk, and I think a lot of other platforms are stateless. So if your application leans well to that, great. If it doesn't, then you are, as a maintainer and developer, you're required to, or you're responsible to persist that state. So that's one. The second thing is, like, how do you develop and test locally? You may not always have access to the OpenWhisk servers on the cloud, right? So that's a very big story for the developers. OpenWhisk has some VS Code tooling that lets you do that. But still, when you're looking at serverless, that's a big shift from developing completely locally on your laptop, where you can put debug statements, and it's very helpful. The other one is like version control, source control. I'm not saying just the source, like not just the source code, but like compositions, and all of those source files need to go somewhere. And currently in OpenWhisk, you have to do it outside the system. Right, so monitoring your functions. One thing I didn't show you was you can do Whisk. This is super cool. You can do activation poll. Right, so this is now like an SSH thing. So if I go in here, I think this is calling the split thing, and you'll see like that, right? It comes through there. So that's one of the toolings you can use too. I don't know if, like, we used to develop on remote servers all the time, and you SSH and tail a file, log file. It's very similar to that. So very handy. Then of course, like, not all of them come with an API gateway, so OpenWhisk does. So that's sort of a freebie with your action. So how I've seen people use it is they will have a endpoint mapped to an action, and then the endpoint will specify what kind of HTTP request it'll accept. And then you can do things like rate limiting or OAuth on the API gateway itself. And then, a couple of things. So latency is a big thing with this sort of application. So Node.js stuff came up pretty fast, but then if I try Java or Swift, those runtimes are fairly slow right now. So those are, again, things to consider. If your application is really critical and you need really fast uptime, then how do you deal with that? And then the last thing, like I said, like if you're doing a lot of stuff in your actions, then this may not be the perfect fit. So it's nothing that's replacing what we're doing right now. It's just complementary. And then I have this funny picture or it's not a funny picture. It's a real GitHub repo from Kelsey Hightower. He works at Google, big serverless guy. But oh, okay, that's okay. You laughed. I was like, okay. But have you seen this one? Okay, so this is a repo called No Code. It literally has no code in it, but it has 2,000 issues, and it has 360 pull requests. And if you actually go to the pull, like somebody creates an issue saying this is running too slow, and somebody else will come and say try this and put like a blank. There's nothing there. And then the first person comes back and says, that worked, that was awesome. Pull request gets merged, and it's amazing. So I don't know, 5 minutes, yeah, I'm almost done. If you have some time, this is like Reddit. You get pulled into all the issues, and you're like, wait, is that a real issue? And yeah, it is. But anyways, see, done. So yeah, that was it. If you have any questions, let me know. I know we're tight on time, so I tried to speak really fast. But,
Well, okay then. It seems as though
it all makes sense.
It did. I like serverless stuff myself. It's pretty great. But we're at the end of our talks for the evening, which means that if you're still here, that you get to participate in our 15 seconds of fame. So, if you have a project that you're working on, Mr. Hunter, Mr. English, cough, cough. If you have a job that you're recruiting for, or if you're looking to occupy a position and you're looking for a job, come on down. Tell us your name, tell us what you're doing, give us your pitch. 15 seconds of fame coming your way. 15 seconds.
All right, take it away, Tom.
I don't know what to say. We just did the cool Osgood project. We announced the previous SFNode. It seemed to take off. We realized the API looks a lot like OpenWhisk's node implementation, so we might try to get on there. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Osgood, come and play with it. Would you like to add anything, Brian?
Star it on GitHub a lot with all of your GitHub accounts.
Yeah, just search for Osgood.js and you'll see it's a way to run JavaScript securely on the servers.
And please play with it, give it a go, and make some contributions and stuff.
It's really fast. It's like three times as fast as other things.
We're bad at this.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Shalom. We're building a full-stack A/B testing platform for modern single-page applications. The whole thing's built on top of Cloudflare workers to be super performant. And we also have a headless CMS specifically built for A/B testing that's also deployed on Cloudflare workers. So if any of that's interesting for you, I'm around. You can just come talk to me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Philip. I work on a product called Lobe. We're building an application for people to train models and make deep learning accessible to folks. So if you have like a large data set, you can sort of train models and export them and use them for your applications. We're hiring right now for all sorts of roles at lobe.ai. Come talk to me if you're interested in deep learning and stuff like that.
Sorry to interrupt anybody. Post details like links on meetup.com. I'll take a picture. If you don't want it, I'll take it down. But that'll help people get the details.
All right, I'll post a link about what I'm about to say, too. Jim Sam, a solution architect at Contentful. We are a headless CMS company, to piggyback off what the last guy said. I'm here because I am recruiting. I have a role called a solution delivery manager. It's a combination of coding and project management. The pluses is that JavaScript's everywhere in our stack, everywhere with our customers. And one of the real bonuses of this job is you travel everywhere, and it's awesome. If you want to be an engineer and you want to move to Berlin, I also have positions there. So thank you very much.
All right, hi, I'm Chris. If you're a web designer or front-end dev, I'd like to put you in touch with an early-stage startup founder who's building a live sports site and needs some help putting together a functional prototype. It'll probably involve some decoupled stack with Node or whatever on the back end, presenting an API to React front end. If you have some experience with that and you're interested, I'll be hanging out afterwards. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Doyle, one of the co-organizers here. I work for a company that you haven't heard of because we don't want to be heard of just yet. The company is called UserWeep. We do customer experience management, or surveys, which sounds super boring, except our current customer pipeline are super cool large companies. What we're looking for is somebody that knows React. We're looking for someone who's kind of a mid to senior level React developer because we have some awesome dashboards that need some love. And we are about to explode on the scene, so we're really dying to get that core team together. So if you are a React developer, love the front end, please come talk to me. We've got a very exciting opportunity. Thank you very much.
Well, that's it. Thank you very much, folks. I would like to give a hat tip to all of you who stuck it out through the end. Thank you very much if you've been here before. Thank you extra very much if you've never been here before. Please come back. My name is Chris. This has been your August edition of SFNode. We'll be back in September. And one last thing. I've been itching for a game of ping pong all night because people keep playing and I keep hearing them cheer over there. So would anyone like to play a game of ping pong? That guy. All right. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And with that, thank you very much, folks. We'll see you next month.